top of the hill. They're not driving that well. They're going all over the track. They're banging off the walls. I think the American drivers can outdrive the Europeans, but they're killing us in the start. From what I can understand of the sport, the most important part is the push. Then the second important part is the driving. We feel as though that if we can be equal to or beat the Europeans in the push times, that we think that we can beat them. And this is why they want, more track people or more people with a little more speed into the sport of bobsledding to give it that push.
Is it then a combination, in your case, of strength and that explosive start?
I think the explosiveness from the very beginning is very important, and then the speed to continue on down the hill, because what you have about 15 to 20 yards, then you go downhill. This is an adjustment that I had to make compared to track and field, of running flat and then dropping off. But it's very important of the start and the speed.
Willie, you've already got a gold medal in track and field. Who knows?
I want another one.
You may have another one.
I want another one. I really want another one. And I think, I'm very gung-ho about this. And, coming from one sport into a new sport, I've only been into this sport since December. I feel grateful that I'm even on the Olympic team. But I'm optimistic enough to believe that I think that we can win the gold.
Willie Davenport, the third man in this sled, USA 1, driven by Bob Hickey.
Bobsledding is a repository for all kinds of athletes, Brian. You've got skiers, you've got runners like Willie Davenport, car racing drivers, but it seems once they get into the sport, they stay with it because it's the most exciting minute you can possibly imagine. The television screen does something for us, but seeing the run and being there is even greater, and being on the sled is just fantastic because 15 corners in 1 minute is just an awful boot in the backside.
Well, that run was perhaps a little disappointing, 5:06. Certainly the reason they got Willie Davenport there was for the push at the top.
That's right, and I have to disagree with Willie a little bit on that importance of the start. It's very important for everybody to make the number 2, 3, and 4 man feel that it's that important. But really, this is a terribly challenging course, and it's a driver's course. What you lose in the start is terribly important, yes, but you can gain more on the driving than you can lose on the start. So you have to have an awfully good driver to really pick up the time in this course.
And listen to that crowd as USA 1 heads down the track. Obviously, very, very popular here. Most of the men in that sled are from this area.
Yes, and they really get a tremendous partisan shout all the way through. They're coming into the finish straight. I don't think they're going to break the 101, but they're having a good time.
Well, there you see it, 101.81. This is CTV, Canada's Olympic Network. One with Martin Glenn at the controls. Earlier, in the first run, they were 101.76, despite turning over on the final corner. A couple of members of the sled were shaken up, and there is Bob Wilson. Looks like he's got something wrong with either his arm or his shoulder.
Well, he had a really bad bruise out of that first turnover, and he seems to be in quite a bit of pain now. They can only hope he'll be up for it tomorrow. He's really, I think he's just upset with himself and with the team, and he just hopes that he can be in there.
Well, back at the top, this is East Germany number 1, driven by Meinhard Nehmer. In 1976, he won gold in both the 2- and the 4-man events.
Well, he's got a commanding lead going into this second heat. He broke the record, and he broke the 1-minute barrier in the first heat. And look at that streamlined sled. That must have cost them tens of thousands of dollars to build. And I just hope that that doesn't ruin the sport, because it's so expensive now that if we have that kind of equipment coming out of the eastern countries, I think that we're going to really have problems in the future.
And look at that start time, 4:83.
That's a fantastic start time. That's 6/10, or 6/100ths rather, ahead of his first start time when he broke the record. And he's got a good upper straight here. These 2 straights are so important to go through cleanly, without skids or without ticks. And he's into the number 6 curve without any problem at all, and also into the number 7 straight. He's doing very well.
Well, at the moment, he has to have a good shot at getting under that 1-minute barrier again.
32.55, that's better than the last time. And here's the Shady, it looks exactly the same. And he's going beautifully. He could easily do it once again, and this will just put him way out in front of the others. But he's got a bad skid right there on little S. He's kicked up some ice on the back end, and he's skidded very badly in the zigzag. I hope he can negotiate it. High on zig, high on zag, and he's lost some time there for certain, but he's still going. He's rocketing, and he's got all kinds of momentum from up above the course.
We'll see the time coming up now. 1:01 flat, 1 minute flat, 0.3. A little worse than his first run, but a great run just the same.
Still the 2 best runs on the course.
And that gives him a time of 1:59.89. certainly a very good run for Meinhard Niemer. This is Switzerland 1 back at the top, driven by Eric Scherer. Earlier this week, he won gold in the two-man bob here at Lake Placid. In Innsbruck, he was third, a three-time world champion.
He's a half a second behind Niemer at this point, and he's got to have something better than 1:00.25 to slip into second place. It almost looks like a run for the silver here for Scherer, unless he can really uncork one. Here's his start time. Just unwinding here now. It's so important to be totally synchronized and boot that 750-pound sled out of that starting slot. And here comes his start time. This is the all-important push that Willie Davenport talked about. Fantastic, 481, the best we've ever seen. Now, if he can hold it up here, he's going to have a fantastic run. Because Scherer can go down and say, oh, he's done it again. He did the same thing last time. In that second straight, he gets into a little skid, hits the wall, and loses part of that momentum that he got from the start.
And, of course, every little bump represents fractions of a second.
And every little skid represents even worse than that, I'm afraid, and that's what he got there. Here comes his intermediate time. We'll see where he's at. 32.67. He's a tenth behind Niemer, but he had a better start, so I would say he's probably 2 tenths behind at this point. But still having a very good run, and is certainly good for second place if he can hang into a really good one down here. Here comes his 12, and coming into that final curve before zigzag. Zigging and zagging, you don't lose much on here. You just want to get through it safely, but he had a swivel going into that, and he went through that corner sideways, so I don't think he's going to break one, that's for sure. But close.
See that time right here? 1:41 for Eric Scherer. And there we see the standings after the first two runs here at Mount Van Hovenberg. We're back at Mount Van Hovenberg for the third run in the four-man bobsled. And we have some unfortunate news for Canadian fans. The Canadian team has withdrawn from competition. We'll talk with one of the team members later in the show. But this is Sweden 1, driven by the oldest athlete here at Lake Placid this year, 50-year-old Carl Erik Eriksson. And Vic, he's been around obviously a long time.
Well, he's into his third decade of bobsledding. He was doing it when I was doing it, started driving just as I was about to retire. And he had some really good runs in practice. In fact, on the basis of practice runs, you would have expected him to get the medal. But at the moment, he's fighting for his life for somewhere around 5th to 6th place. He's in 5th, but he's got a bunch of people around him. You can only hope that he can really uncork it today. He's used to getting some really good times in the upper part of this course, but he lost a little bit yesterday. Let's see how this intermediate split is.
And, of course, in a sport which requires so much experience from the driver, finding the proper line, he has it.
32.61. That's his best ever, and so he's going to challenge. Now, he's the first sled off in this third heat, and so we'll know pretty soon whether this is a great run or a very fast track. But he's really motoring down here, down through that final 12 curve, before the straight, before the famous zigzag curve. He's zigging and zagging, and he's having a very, very good run. He lopped off late there, but he's coming into the finish straight, and he's looking fine. Here comes his finish time.
Take your eye on the clock at the bottom of your screen. There it is, 1:36. A pretty good time for Carl Erik Eriksson driving Sweden 1. And Vic, you talked to him beforehand. I know he's happy with that. This is East Germany number 2, driven by Horst Schonau. He is 30 years of age, and he is a former luger, back on the national team after a 1-year absence.
Now, Horst has got a 1/10 of a second lead on Sweden going into this third heat. But he gets a fantastic start usually. 486 is Eriksson's start, so let's see what this start's going to be. That's 481, but he's got a little bit of a skid there. 481 means that he has 5/100ths faster for the first 50 meters than what Eriksson had. And that means maybe a 10th, maybe 2 tenths additional speed as a result of the push start. The unfortunate thing for Eriksson trying to compete with these German-speaking nations, particularly the DDRs, is their equipment and the amount of time they have on tracks. They have refrigerated tracks, and they have hundreds of runs every year. And here comes his intermediate split, 32.52. He may break the 1 minute. That's a very, very fast intermediate. So Eriksson's once again behind it. Here he is coming down to the straight behind Sadie.
And this, of course, all important to set up the very difficult turn of zigzag. Going in there right now, zigging. Good line through zig, back through zag, a little high, back onto the straightaway.
So he's having a fabulous run, and he's going to be very close to the 1 minute mark and put him solidly into 4th or 5th place.
Here we see it. 1 minute, 0.4 seconds for Horst Schonau of East Germany 2. And as you say, a very solid competitor here this week. And they've got to be happy with that time. Back at the top, the familiar sled, Switzerland #1, driven by Eric Scherer. If you followed our coverage earlier in the week, he won gold in the two-man here at Lake Placid. 33 years of age in Innsbruck in '76. He was third. He is a three-time world champion.
Now, Scherer has got his World Championship title on the line here. He beat Namer, who was in first place after 2 heats in the two-man, to take the Olympic title there. But now he's really fighting for second and third place with the prior sled. In fact, I made an error there, Brian. There's so many German-speaking nations with fast sleds that Schorer in before there is really in second place going into the third heat. And this is the chap that Scherer's got to beat with a really good run here. He had a fantastic start up there, 4:79, fastest ever on the track. And here comes his intermediate time. It should be a mid-32 to be really in there.